So today I am going to be cooking some chili beans. What I have is I have some pinto beans. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to soak my beans. I've placed them in a bowl and I have a kettle on the stove with some boiling hot water. And I'm going to pour the water over the beans and then I'm going to let them soak for about 2 to 3 hours. There's two reasons why I soak my beans. One is because it makes your beans more tender and it doesn't take as long for them to cook. And then the second reason is that it's easier to digest the beans. Sometimes beans are hard to digest, and a lot of times your intestines won't break them down properly. So if you let your beans soak in hot water, in really, really hot water for a couple of hours, it will help with the digestion process of those beans. So what I'm doing is I'm covering my beans with a plate and I'm just going to set them to the side for a couple of hours and let them soak. So I've let them soak. I actually let those soak for about 3 hours. As you can see, the beans have expanded. So what I'm doing now is I am transferring my pinto beans into a pot of boiling hot water that I set on medium heat. I'm not pouring the beans in there, but I'm straining them from the water that they were previously in because you don't want to use that water. I really don't use measurements when I cook certain things, so I'll just say that I filled the pot half full of water and I'm cooking half the bag of pinto beans, and I'll show you that bag in a few minutes. You don't want to put too much water in the pot because you'll need to add your other ingredients to the pot, and you don't want too little because the beans need enough water to actually get done. The water that the beans are cooking in will be your stock for the dish. So you want to make sure that you have enough because you're not going to drain that water that I'm putting those beans into. I'm not going to drain that water from those beans. That water is actually going to be the stock for the dish. So you want to make sure that you have enough water in there and not too much. I know that's probably like a hard saying, but that's why I usually just put about half. I'll make the water. I have the water half full in the pot. So now I have some Cajun Creole seasoning that I'm adding to my beans, and that seasoning is onions and it's bell peppers and it's celery and it's garlic. And if you look really, really close, some of the little bitty bell peppers that you see in there, they actually came from my garden. I'm so proud I have a garden, you guys. And so anyway, they actually came from my garden. But anyway, so I'm going to cover my pot and I'm going to cook my beans on medium heat. So now what you see me doing is I am actually taking my ground beef and I am going to brown my ground beef in a pan on medium heat. I used about a half a pack of ground beef, but you can use a whole. Most of the times I do use more than what I have today, but that's what I have today. But you can do it as you desire. Like if you want more ground beef in your chili beans, you're more than welcome to add more. I always feel like as long as you have your foundation right, you can add or subtract or multiply or divide. Use a little bit of math. You can do it and add more or take away something and add something else. It's always good to like experiment with your food because you never know. So here's my bag of pinto beans that I purchased, and I used about half a bag. So that may be, I'm not sure if that's a cup or not. I'm not quite sure. But here we have our ground beef, and I am actually draining it from all of the excess oil. Most of the times I'll take a plate, I'll put some paper towels in it to soak up any excess oil because you don't want too much cholesterol, in your body. So here I am taking my Cajun Creole seasoning blend and I'm adding it back to the pan that I used to cook my ground beef in. I cleaned my pan up, and so now I'm adding some seasoning blend in there. As you can see, the smells, you can see it but you can't smell it, but there's smells and everything, and I love that because it makes it smell really, really good. Now I'm adding my ground beef back into the pot, and I am adding some spaghetti sauce. Adding some spaghetti sauce to it, and I'm also adding some ketchup to it. And I also am going to be adding some dry seasonings that I have, like the oregano leaves, like the cilantro leaves, and the basil leaves. And I'm adding this ketchup because I want it to have a little bit of a tomato taste to it. So that's why I'm adding some ketchup. And look, if you feel like I'm not putting enough spaghetti sauce in there, have at it. Like I said before, at your own discretion. You can add as much as you want at your own discretion. And here we are with our different types of leaves, basil, oregano, cilantro. All of the leaves are going to go in there in the seasoning, and it's going to make it taste like really, really good. And you can also, if you want, you can add some taco seasoning to your chili, some chili powder to your chili, however you want. As long as you have your foundation, you can experiment however you like. So I'm one of those type of people. I like to experiment. I'll go by a recipe to a certain extent, and then sometimes I'm like, I may do it the first time, but then as I continue to cook a dish, I'm like, I'm going to add this. I want to see how this tastes with it. I want to add that. So hey, you always have the option to do that. You don't have to go strictly by the recipe. And I don't know, I guess maybe that's why I don't have measurements all the time for stuff, because I'm always been a little bit spontaneous. So I'm going to simmer the chili on low heat until the beans are done. So now what I'm doing is I am cutting up some sausage. I have some turkey sausage, but you can have like any kind of Cajun sausage, andouille sausage, anything. If you want your chili beans to have more of a spice to it, you can add some kind of sausage with a spice to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these sausage and I am going to place them in a pot of water, and I'm going to let them boil for just a few minutes. Not too long, but I'm going to let them boil for just a few minutes. And then it's going to be another ingredient that I'm going to actually add to my beans. So now that my sausage is ready, I'm going to go ahead and add the chili to the beans. That's why I didn't want to have too much water in there, because you don't want to have an overflow. And so I'm going to add the chili to the beans. I'll go ahead and put all of that in there, and I'm going to stir that up and just let that all come together. My chili and my beans kind of come together, and just let it all, the seasons and all of everything just kind of come together all at once. And I'm going to add my sausage to my beans and my chili. I actually end up cutting those sausage in quarters because I felt it was better to eat, I don't know, just for them to be a little bit smaller instead of the halves. I cut them up in quarters. So I'm going to add that to my chili beans. And because I do not have any roasted tomatoes, because normally I will add roasted tomatoes, and those roasted tomatoes usually have a spice to it, or my sausage, if I had some andouille sausage, it would have a spice to it. But because I don't have that, I'm just going to add some Creole seasoning to it. And I'm going to let that simmer on low heat so that all of the flavors can come together. So you guys, this is the kind of dish I like to make on a cold day. When the weatherman says Saturday it's going to be raining and it's going to be cold, I get prepared. I go to the grocery store during the week. I run all my errands during the week. And like on Saturdays, I'm just walking around the house with the PJs on, some fuzzy socks. I'm watching Lifetime. I'm listening to the rain and I'm eating chili beans. I'm taking a nap and I've got my favorite blanket and I'm like people watching out the window, watching everybody else go to the store in the rain and they're wet and all of that kind of stuff. This is the kind of dish I like to cook when it's cold and you have something warm inside. So it doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't get any better than that. So I hope you guys like this video and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day.